Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, back at you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery, a Husker Monday. We are loaded up. Dr. Rob Zatechka, part of the pipeline, will join us in Hour 2. Mr. Blackshirt Charlie McBride in Hour 2. We're 25 minutes away from Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, so let's get to it. Day 4 of camp. Elijah is ready for 2-a-days. Me, not so much. I'm going to pace myself in. But a lot of football to get into. Some news on Nick Saban. He has been extended by the Board of Regents at Alabama. $84.8 million. Ugh. That would put St. Nick at the age of 77, making a cool $10.6 million. That's lots of boats with double motors. And more bait for like the 3 days a year off he takes to go fishing. And college football could look insanely different in 8 months, let alone 8 years with Nick Saban and Bama doing their thing.
Well, yeah, Alabama saw that article from The Onion that said the players were making Nick Saban run wind sprints after they determined that they were making more in NIL than he was. So Bama had to update their offers. They couldn't let that happen.
Do not kid yourself. Coca-Cola is throwing money at him for the original Coke and Dasani water product placement. Every podium, man. You're right. I mean, just boom, right there, bottle of water. He takes 0 sips.
Well, it used to be
Jack Daniels may just get in the ring here.
Well, at Nebraska was always the bottle of Mountain Dew sitting up there, no one ever took a sip out of. But is it still up there? I guess you were there today.
Well, but that was kind of different. That was post-practice versus press conference Monday.
Okay, yeah.
But the point, I haven't seen Mountain Dew yet this year. At least I didn't last week. So
See, that's like the question becomes, like, if it's Nick Saban sitting up there with his bottle of Coke, is that Nick Saban's bottle of Coke? Or is that the university's bottle of Coke? Like, who's making the money off of that?
Well, I mean, the university's got the pouring rights. But I'm just saying, I mean, I like Coca-Cola. I'm going to get struck down by our friends at Pepsi, but I still wish I could get a Coke in the old plastic cups you used to get at Memorial Stadium about 20 years ago. That tasted awesome. That was really good. I deal with what I deal with when I probably water or coffee in the stadium. But we're going to dive in, get some thoughts from Coach Chinander. Also a report out of a radio station kind of in the Clemson region about the SEC and Florida State and Clemson perhaps. I don't know who's asking who out on the date, but they're trying to date. More conference expansion. We'll get into it. Numbers to dive in, 466-3776. 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. All right, what are you most confident in with this Nebraska football team? As we are in, camp day number 4, the 28th of August, boom, kickoff happens against the Fighting Illini. It's okay to say you're most confident in the defensive side of the ball. It returns the most starters, 9, right? 9 of the 11. You feel pretty good about some of the younger guys, and you had pretty strong, not sunshine or even smoke, even though it's smoky outside, but you just had some matter-of-fact thoughts, and the topic of basic math versus calculus makes sense. And it seems like Nebraska for 1,000 years has always been swimming upstream with talent level, with experience, with youth, and then, oh, by the way, let's change something. Let's change a head coach. Let's change a defensive coordinator. Let's change a position coach, right? I mean, that's this revolving door a Blackshirt has been going through the last several years. You've had some continuity, you've had some stability, and you're hoping to see a jump. You saw a good jump last year defensively when it came to being built right to stop the run defensively in the Big Ten. And it was conference only. So from a points per game standpoint, listen, Nebraska's defense needs to be better. But in games in the Big Ten and games in college football, even the greatest defenses, think of how many guys have been sent to the NFL by Ohio State or Clemson or Alabama. There's 2 games a year Bama gives up 40 now. They wouldn't give up 40 in a game, in a season, I should say, combined. But no, you've got to win a couple of shootouts in college football. For the love of God, I mean, no disrespect to Iowa or Purdue, but they've both put up half 100 in the last 3 years against Ohio State. And you're gonna get in a shootout with Penn State and Ohio State. There's been some of those fascinating ball games where it's 45-44 against great defenses with superior pass rush and run-stopping dudes. And that's just their front 4, okay? We're not talking about the back 7. So, listen, the defense has got to be incredible situationally, and the defense has got to, say it with me, Elijah, get pressure. And that was a fun topic of discussion today, and we'll talk with Jay more about it, because there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can either scheme it, or you just get it done one-on-one. Nebraska for years had guys get it done one-on-one. And you can go down the list from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s to even 6 years ago with Randy Gregory or an Ndamukong Suh or a Levante David. I mean, you could send extra heat, but Nebraska had guys that would win. Let's hear from Coach Chinander here, specifically on the fun he's having because of that experience. You like the kids you're working with, but you've got a bunch of guys that are at a level right now where it's not, what am I supposed to do, or do I have this down? They know the responsibility. They're sick of losing, and they're hoping to be part of the solution when it comes to this team, this program, taking a step forward. And that can be a big part, a big building block defensively.
Yeah, it's actually been really fun for me. There's still some freshmen that have to get taught the basics, but a lot of the meetings, a lot of the installs, we're talking about real football. We're talking about situations. We're talking about technique. We're talking about detail instead of, okay, we're putting in the defense. Here's your job. Here's what you do. Let's go play football. When we get through that, we've got to really detail things, and we've got to talk about just overall global football knowledge, football formations, football plays, and I think that's really helped the guys, the older guys especially, move their game to the next level.
So that's the hope by Chinander. That's kind of the expectation that you take a greater step forward. If your defense can be, I'm not even going to ask him to be top 25, right? But if your defense can be 30 to 35th, and you get anything from your offense in the form of consistency, you get anything from your special teams in the form of consistency, you're not turning the football over or you're not committing a penalty. Wow. I mean, let's talk about postseason if you're Nebraska. And it's going to come down to some guys. Look, I don't have issue with what they have on the field to stop the run. As far as their middle backers go, I think there's some talent there. They got to stay healthy. You just do. And as far as outside linebackers go, you got a special dude in JoJo Doman. Is a guy like Feldarius Payne going to be a difference maker? Is Feldarius ready to kind of take that role on because of his athleticism? Is Garrett Nelson? Is Caleb Tanner? Same names we know, right? But is it a step forward? And back to that math comment that Chinander made. I mean, you can do some really cool things defensively if guys have the basics down.
We're not in general math anymore. We're like in whatever you guys took. I took like general math 1 and 2. You guys like calculus or whatever, right? We're there. So we're getting these formulas figured out instead of figuring out 2 + 2, and it's really nice. It's almost you get to the install with the older guys. They're almost kind of like, seriously, we gonna install this again? And you have to do it for the rookies and those types of things. But it just feels different. It doesn't feel like it's Groundhog Day, like we're starting over every single day, like something it has in the past when you're putting in a new system and you're getting new players and those types of things. It feels like we've already got the groundwork laid. Now we're putting on the trim and the shingles and the details, and that's a good feeling for me.
Well, you've got to keep their attention, get them engaged, get the buy-in. That's happened. Look at all the dudes, Elijah, that have come back to go out better. So you've got buy-in, you've got 1-2. Now it comes down to execution. And if they can do some things schematically, and I think they can, because you saw it at Central Florida, where they'd put a guy like Griffin in position to just go be a home wrecker, a game changer. They need someone like that to step up defensively for Nebraska off the edge. But as far as their foundation and some of the guys that can do nice things, I think it's there. And he's pretty glowing right now in year 4, knowing that they want to win as bad as the fan base.
Yeah, and when I hear Chinander talking about advanced math, basic math, it takes me back to there was what day was this? On Friday. It was the 2015 Nebraska and Minnesota game was airing on BTN. And I was watching it, and it was at a very crucial time in the game. One of the corners, I think it was Josh Mitchell, was lining himself up. Kalu. Yeah, that's it. It was Josh Kalu. And he was lining him up to come in on a blitz. And the quarterback went through his count and stuff, and then they looked at the sideline, and Kalu goes back over to the wide receiver. And he was pretty clearly blitzing on that play, but he looks back at Nate Gary and just touches the side of his helmet one time. And the next time that the quarterback starts his cadence, Nate Gary comes screaming up from the secondary spot, and nobody picked him up on the blitz because they were expecting the corner to come on the blitz. And Nate Gary made a stop in the backfield at a pretty crucial time. It was like a 2nd and 10.
And it was a 24-17 ball game where Minnesota's offense didn't score in the second half.
And this is one of those basic versus advanced math things. The call you got from the sideline was it's a corner blitz here, but the guys in the field went in advanced math and said, well, they know I'm coming. If they know I'm coming, what's the point of me blitzing here? Let's let somebody else blitz who they don't know is coming in. Let's just flip jobs here. It's one of those things that's not something that the coaches on the sideline were yelling, hey, flip that. That's the guys in the field saying, we're going to do something advanced here so they don't pick it up. And these are the little things that I think Nebraska's defense could be better in next year.
Well, and think what it can do. It can add to TFL. It can add to blowing up drives. It can add to, dare I say, a guy rushing free on 3rd and 8 and getting to the quarterback. I mean, that's going to be kind of the proof, and we'll talk to Jay more about it, with this defense. You can stop the run. You can get better at getting off the field on 3rd down like they did the last half of the year. I thought they tackled pretty well. I don't doubt their physicality. And when it comes to making plays, I mean, you've got guys in a Deontay Williams that's kind of a ball hawk. When he's healthy, he's a guy that can go get turnovers for you as a safety. Cam Taylor-Britt, special on the edge. You think Terry Johnson or whoever wins that opposite corner spot can be good, and you got a bunch of hard-nosed dudes that are going to fill the middle in. On top of your options defensive line-wise. So it comes down to who's opposite JoJo, who's going to be opposite Cam Taylor-Britt, and can one of the 11 go kill a quarterback twice a game, right? And that's really what separates teams from good to dependable to, oh, God, it's 3rd and 8. What happens? Oh, 1 Mississippi, 12 Mississippi, quarterback's got all day to throw, and they pick up a 3rd down. They kind of smack you in the face and break your will. Oh, they get into field goal range. Or, oh, you hit somebody late. Or there's a targeting call. All those things, right? So there are a lot of steps for the defense to take. So we'll get there with Jay Moore. All right, what are you buying here? Are you buying this report here with Clemson and Florida State out of the ACC down to the SEC? You have the outgoing Florida State president pretty much over the weekend making it known he's retiring, he's checking out, but he's like, look, I don't want Florida State to be left behind. And if you're the ACC and you've got this grant of rights till 2036 in Notre Dame's Olympic sports, use your conference, but Notre Dame football dates you for a while, but they still see other people like, Stanford and USC and the service academies. What's reality versus, if you're Clemson, you're going to be in the playoff no matter what, whether you join the SEC or you stay in the ACC. As long as Dabo's there and you're going 12-1, you're there. You don't need to join and somehow survive the SEC East.
But we said the
with
same
a
thing
9-3
about Oklahoma.
No, I get it. But if Texas was going to join, you kind of got to go with them, right? Because you're dependent on that state for recruiting, and you kind of like slapping them around. Texas, well, seriously, Texas wouldn't care if they give up the state fair game. I mean, it would ruffle some folks, but if it's for money and your own prerogative, Texas has and will sell their soul for their own best interest. They don't care. They don't care if they're with Oklahoma or A&M or they bust up the Big 12 or they spearhead a way out of the Southwestern Conference back in the day. They're going to do their own thing. They don't need you at all. But they found the SEC and they're going to get paid. So what becomes of the ACC if you lose Florida State, if you lose Clemson? Is it possible? And if I'm Florida State, I'm asking, but I get Clemson to go with me. And, does that open the door for a power play with the Big Ten and Notre Dame? Because you don't have to do much if you're the Big Ten other than react appropriately. You're making a ton of money now. Jay Moore's on the way with Hail Varsity.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Use Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Oh, it's a great golf day, and I'm sure we're interrupting financial gain. Weather's perfect. We say hi to Blackshirt Husker NFLer co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay Moore is with us. Jay Bird, tell me you put the club down to talk to us.
No, I've had some back issues here lately, so I had to withdraw from the state am in the third round last week.
Oh, man, I didn't know that.
I was going into the third round, warming up, and just was feeling fine and just kind of getting ready to warm up. And I just had that twinge happen in the lower back, which I've dealt with before. I haven't had in about 3 years, but it was just really bad timing. So, I haven't touched a club, swung a tennis since my second round of the stadium last Wednesday. So, getting over now, everything feels fine now. But I wish I was out playing golf. It is a beautiful day, but unfortunately, I am healing up and trying to make things are all right in the back.
Well, I would ask if you called Deshaun Watson for a number, but that's rude of me. Just to make sure your back's okay, get the old massage therapist on it pronto. No, in all seriousness, man, football season's around the corner. It's practice number 4, and wanted to get your take on when you were playing ball, either in the NFL or college, how much scheming went in to get after the quarterback versus asking, and I ask this because Coach Chinander really was cool about talking about, what other Big Ten teams do and what Nebraska can do when it comes to getting after the quarterback. You can scheme a way to go get a quarterback on a blitz, or you can win a one-on-one. And I'm interested what your experience has been like with some of the defenses you've been a part of, and one way or the other. I mean, you want the same result. You want to go get that incompletion or TFL on a third down.
Right. Well, ideally, you'd like to be able to, sit back with 7 and be able to get home with 4. If you're, your front 4, your 3-down lineman, maybe a really good outside linebacker, rushing the passer, can get home. And you've seen that done quite a bit, with some good college teams, really good NFL teams. That's what makes the defense so great. But if you don't, then you're going to have to bring 5 or 6 and sit back there and, be in some man and zone on some stuff. And sometimes you might have to get some zero blitzes going where you're bringing, all the safeties and everyone else is man-to-man, and you're bringing 6 or 7 guys. So it can be tough. So you're just ideally you want to be able to have guys where there's some man up front that can flat out get after the quarterback, and you don't have to bring 6 or 7 guys to win or get home. You'd like to sit back there with 7 guys and say, hey, good luck. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. And there's just so many different ways to skin a cat with in a defense. I mean, you can bring up some zone blitzes. You can bring some boundary blitzes. They come from the short side of the field. You bring up some field blitzes. Come from the wide side of the field. You can bring them with the middle. You can kind of do all sorts of stuff. You can drop. You can bring linebackers and drop defensive linemen in there. I mean, there's all sorts of different things you can go about it. That's just decided week to week depending on what each opponent struggles with. But then this is what they're all installing right now. They're getting ready to they're fine tuning these calls. Whether it's getting ready for Ohio State, Michigan, or hell, Illinois first game. They're trying to figure out what they are most comfortable with, what Chinander feels most comfortable with calling when it's 3rd and short or 3rd and long, or hell, even if it's first or second down, you want to dial something up to try to get things rattled, try to get the offense riled up. So it's just part of the process right now is getting guys comfortable with everything, and that's what training camp's for. But yeah, there's a million different ways to go about it.
Jay Moore's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, the Husker defense, it was billed as being, it's not going to hold you to 0 points per game, but it is going to generate turnovers and win that turnover margin. That's something they've struggled with in the past 3 years, is winning the turnover battle in games. How do you emphasize that? I know generating pressure is a huge part of that from sacks and the quarterback throwing it before he wants to. But just through fall camp, how do you emphasize being aggressive enough to get turnovers while not playing reckless?
Yeah, it's small things. It's always, ripping for the ball. It's, the first guy in the tackle wraps up the guy, and then the next guy in there is ripping for the football. And then if you get really good at it, like old Peanut Tillman, you'd come in there with your elbow or your fist, and as you're going to tackle, you're able to punch the ball out. And then some guys, you just get the helmet on the ball, and you're not even trying to do that. Just happens sometimes, but you just got to use the small things. You drill those things. They probably drill it every day in practice. But it's really the first guy gets in there, wraps it up. The next guy's in there, ripping out the ball. Then it comes getting some interceptions too. And we all know the secondary is probably the strength of defense with those guys who played a bunch in the back end. So just being comfortable in those coverages and knowing where your health is, so you can go shoot your gun and make a play on the ball because you got some help behind you or know when you can't take your shot. So if you are in man coverage or whatever, you're just trying to get the ball incomplete and move on. So it's just, and these guys have been playing this defense have been around the block. They've played a ton of football, so they should be finally comfortable with everything and can start making those small little detailed moves to create some more turnovers. Jay
Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. Jay, that's one thing Chinander talked about today is just the basic math versus the calculus, right? That jump.
Mm-hmm.
When did that hit you? Where I know this system so well, I'm going to be able to play free, or they're going to be able to put some hot fudge and some caramel and some sprinkles on these calls. How I know it's different for different guys, but what's a good point in your career to be able to have it down? Some guys get it as freshmen, some guys get it as sophomores, others take longer. I get it, but it's different to a man. But what's average, I guess, in a good way for somebody to get down a defense as a whole to be able to take that next step?
Yeah, it's usually year 2, or if they maybe redshirt, then maybe it's their sophomore season. If they did a redshirt, then maybe it's maybe they picked up a little earlier, so maybe it's their sophomore. Usually by your 3rd year, you should have a complete total grasp. Now, some of these guys in this defense now have been the same guys, but I mean, hell, this teams that Nebraska have been in struggles because there's new coordinators, new coaches. So just when you think you're about ready to get a grasp of something, a coach is fired, or you new defensive coordinators brought in or new offensive coordinators brought in or whatever it is. So, we've had a lot of same faces now going into year 4. So plenty of guys have played a lot of football in either scheme. So they should have a good grasp. I mean, that's without that's a given. I would think. Mm-hmm. Now it's just understanding and fine tuning things. It's your alignment and assignment. Now it's just honestly. I think I told you this before earlier is, it's understanding why the offense is trying to do things. Yeah. Your alignment, and what you need to do, where your help is. Okay, now you can really start to cheat things a little bit. If this wide receiver split like this, or this tight end is, aligned like this, or this tackle is like this, or this fullback offset like this. You're like, okay, now I know what they're trying to get me to do. Now I can even be one step quicker and almost cheat it one way or another to help me play a little faster or make that play or do whatever I need to do to get to the flat or to, get a jam on the tight end so I can help my safety out, then I can get to the flat. So it's just the process. So these guys should be, all the guys that have played going into the third year within the system, they should be well comfortable to start making bigger steps.
Jay, I want to look ahead to week 1 a little bit, or I guess I should say week 0 against Illinois, because from your experience as a player, I mean, usually Nebraska and most Power 5 schools will open their season with a cupcake game, a game that's going to be a win, mm-hmm. But Nebraska does not have that this year. They have a team that beat them last year and really took them to the wire 2 years ago in Illinois. So when you look at that, do you think this team's going to have extra motivation as they make it through the dog days of fall camp?
Oh, they better. I mean, they better. they better figure it out because you start 0-1 against. You go to Champaign and get beat, and you lose game 1. You're in week 0 to Illinois. This is. I mean, every game's big, but this might be the biggest of them all. This team has to get off to a good start. So I don't think there needs to be any extra motivation. I mean, this team has not been good. I mean, they have not been a good football program. The last few years, and now it's time to take some strides. The pressure is getting more and more evident, and they need to start making some moves, and that starts from the top on down. Because this isn't a paid vacation type of deal, man. This is winning. This is big business, so they need to start winning some football games. And you come out and lay an egg against Illinois game 1. And I know they have a new staff with the hog farmer coming in there. So it's going to be a tough task, but I think these guys are going to be. I hope the maturity of this football team is older, so I think they're going to be totally well aware of what this first game means. Because obviously you'd like to be undefeated, head down to Norman for that tough battle. But we've seen crazier things, obviously, with this football program in the last few years. So you need to be maybe on key on point every single day. Walkthroughs, meetings. They can't afford a day off or a bad practice because this game 1 against Illinois means a lot.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, about 30 seconds. Are you excited about where the offense can go?
Yeah, I am. I'm excited. I think just where we just talked about how old this team is mm-hmm. getting, it excites me, but I'm still not going to put, the cart before the horse. I think, there's been too many, there's some wounds that haven't healed yet from the mistakes that they've made in the past where I'm just like, well, let's kind of wait and see. Like, you got a QB that's going into his 4th year. You got, a group of O-linemen that have played some good football and good young players stepping up behind them. You finally get some more help at the wide receiver spot. The running back position is kind of up in the air, but I'm not as too concerned with that. But I do think they can make some big strides, and it starts with Adrian. I mean, he's the most important guy in this offense as any QB is, and I think if he stays healthy, this offense can really kind of get to rolling, and it'll be fun to watch. It will be fun. You get the defense going, and I think this offense can do some things finally that we've probably been used to seeing at Oregon or even at Central Florida. But again, we were thought we'd see this a lot earlier. We probably still have. We've seen it at times. We've seen flashes of it. Now it's just time to get more consistent with it and kind of what you're going to get week in and week out. Even when when you will be playing tougher opponents like Michigan and Oklahoma and Ohio State. So they'll be fun to see.
Jay, we'll do this again. Thanks for the time, brother.
Yep, you got it.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me. Try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. It's a Monday edition, Husker Monday with Hail Varsity Radio. Jay Moore, just last segment. Charlie McBride in 20 minutes, Mr. Blackshirt. And then part of the pipeline, Dr. Rob Zatechka, his podcast, Doc Talk Sports. So Dr. Rob going to be with us next hour. A little O-line, D-line, and then motivating defensive coordinator. So, Elijah, how would you have felt to forego your senior season at Lincoln Southeast and go play football at Ohio State? Quinn Ewers, the number 2 prospect in 2022, skipping his senior season to enroll early at Ohio State. How is this possible? Well, it just is. He's out of South Lake Carroll, Texas. He had been with Texas, then decommitted, did so because, you know what, he wants to get to Columbus and start pursuing the NIL benefits. Ohio State has 3 other quarterbacks between last year's recruiting class and 2022 that are insanely high prospects. But when it comes to his ability to profit off NIL, it exists in Columbus. Apparently, it did not in Austin.
Well, yeah, the Texas high school athletic commission essentially said that no high school athletes can profit off their name, image, and likeness. So he would have had to go another 6 months without profiting.
Bevo's going to have himself a chat with the Texas High School Athletic Association.
Well, I mean, my problem with it is just, if you can, he graduated through his summer course. He had 1 course left that he took in the summertime. He's getting ready to finish that up now, and then he is going to be off to Ohio State. I'm not sure how that factors into eligibility. I believe that would make this his first year of eligibility then with Ohio State, which is, it's strange to me because from the quarterback position, that's one of the positions where you want as much time practicing before your first season as possible. So he's going to have to use up his redshirt season this year. Probably not even a position where he's going to be ready to see the field for his limited 3-4 games, and plus Ohio State's loaded at quarterback anyway. So it makes me go, why not just go play your senior season, have a super easy class schedule, and then go enroll at Ohio State in January? You're going to miss out on that much money between the months of August and December?
Here's what I think. I think Ohio State's like, dude, we need to get you out of Texas because when push comes to shove, we may lose you at the 12th hour. I mean, just think of the full court press, Texas or Jimbo or Sark or the powers that be would be putting on. We're talking full court press to get a difference maker at quarterback like this. I mean, he's in that realm of top quarterback in the country like Sunshine, right, that's been at Clemson for 100 years and won. With Lawrence. Vince Young, another guy that's kind of reminiscent of the level of talent. Now, Nebraska would have had Vince Young. Just an aside there. That got screwed up and he went to Texas.
But let's not forget here on the other end of the spectrum, Tate Martell was this highly touted as well.
No, he was. Well, that's what I'm wondering. If this kid's already bolting high school to go get enrolled early and get it down, hey, maybe he's not expecting to play. He wasn't going to play anyway, so he's just going to scout team it and get it down. Maybe it's okay. Maybe he's not going to be a future transfer.
And for all we know,
because he's unhappy. The other part of this too, if he's from South Lake Carroll and he said no to Texas, he said yes, then he said no. I don't know his family situation, but I can imagine that there's some pressures on mom and dad or whatever, whoever's his guardian, where you told Texas yes and then you told Texas no and you're going to Ohio State. That probably isn't a great family situation for mom or dad's work, just being real. I mean, stuff like that happens in Alabama, in Texas, in some football factory states where, listen, you don't tell the home state school no, or we'll make your life a living hell.
I mean, not to mention, this is a 18-year-old kid too, who's probably going to be getting some stick from the student sections he's going up against, even their parent sections he's going up against. Whenever he goes out on the town, people are going to be saying, oh, that's the kid that's going to Ohio State instead of Texas. But I don't want to be too quick to rush to judgment. For all I know, maybe he just wasn't challenged by his high school coursework anymore and wanted to get some college level courses out of the way. Maybe he's just a scholar like that.
Well, he might be, but good for Quinn. I mean, I hope it works out for him, because I think he's a dude that could, if he's going to go in and just put the work in a year early versus January and see what it's like. Maybe he's a prodigy.
This is 10 times better than him saying, I'm going to sit out my senior year and then still enroll at Ohio State in January. Who were we talking about that did that?
Some college kid or some high school kid.
Yeah, who was off to Texas, I think.
Yeah.
Running back.
Yes, like the number one running back in the country.
Yeah, and this is 10 times better than that. If he's going to be headed off to Ohio State, I can't blame the kid. I mean, yeah, go get your college career underway now, and NFL teams want to get you in and developed young too. So if you can get your 3 years in pretty quick and you're still a young kid going to the draft after you use 3 years of eligibility, you can think about your future as well. It's one less year of toll on your body, I guess, in high school football. So at least he's not just sitting out, still going to high school and then saying, okay, I'll go to Ohio State and I'll just leave my high school teammates by the side of the road. It's not that. He's probably looking for his best interest here. And if he can go make $1 million in his first 6 months at Ohio State, I mean, who am I to tell you can't do that?
You'll make something. You've got Stroud, you've got Miller, you've got McCord. Those are your three. And you've had back-to-back first-round guys go for Ohio State. It had been 1,000 years since you've had any Big Ten quarterbacks get drafted in the first round. I mean, you got to go back to Kerry Collins, right, for forever until Ohio State popped a couple. So there's that. I just saw this from Bill Rabinowitz. He says that now that he's enrolling now, he becomes the highest-rated player in the modern era of recruiting to ever be off to Ohio State. He's now jumps in ahead of Terrell Pryor, just in terms of like the scouting, like the metrics. Let's pray for Ohio State's sanity that he's not the headache that Terrell Pryor ended up being. Tattoo Gate.
Terrell Pryor was still a phenomenal athlete. He was. But look at those guys that Ohio State's had for the last 10 years.
Look what it took to get him out of Pennsylvania, though. I mean, stuff was a little shaky and shady, and then by the way, I'll sign some helmets. Just make sure my sleeve's done. So, and it took down a coach. Took down Jim Tressel in August before kickoff. And then you had Luke Fickell step in.
Should also be noted that him reclassifying into this 2021 class means that Ohio State has opened up another scholarship in their class of 2022. Who knows if they have someone in mind there, but
they'll go find another quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
You know how the Buckeyes.
They'll go find another 5-star.
They'll work on it. Hey, to be the man, you got to beat the man, and you do that by getting third down pressure on said quarterback phenom, right? All right, good stuff there. We'll spend some time with Charlie McBride, Rob Zatechka, hour 2. Loaded up, still a window for you to jump in at 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Chris at HailVarsity.com, and find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence. We'll wind down hour 1 next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We will get the lowdown on, the 20-6 destruction by Alpha and 10-11. Softball went well.
26-6.
Oh, so you guys covered.
Oh, we covered and then some. We put up
26-6.
We put up 10 in the first. No, 14 in the first 2 innings.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So who was coaching third?
It was kind of changing every single inning. But D. Wayne.
Guys, your arms were tired.
D. Wayne was head coach,
waving him home.
So
did he give you a massive pep talk?
D. Wayne?
Yeah,
he gave us a pretty good little pep talk in the dugout, and you could just tell was
there breaking glass and swearing? We should call him.
It's if you check out, I believe the 10-11 news, like the Facebook page, they had a little live stream. I think you can see a little bit of his pregame speech in there.
Okay, so
he brought the fire.
Okay, so that was good. How did you do?
Well,
no errors at first. Oh, you did?
Well,
dude, did you go Buckner? Are you responsible for 3 of the 6 runs?
Okay, so one was I'm calling an error on myself because it probably was. It was a slow roller down that first base side that just got caught up in the grass. And like with those 60 feet baselines, I was trying to hustle to pick it up and get it over to first. And I booted it a little bit. So it would have been a close play anyway. I'll take the error on that one. And then there was one that was scored as an error on me. I think it was a throwing error from the shortstop. It was pretty
Who's
wide.
Playing short?
Will Wilson. Of course.
So the mullet got in the way on the release.
So it was a little bit wide. I had a pretty good stretch over there with my frame.
You're 6'4"?
6'3".
6. Okay.
So
6'3".
with my frame, I got some long arms,
long legs. And you lefty?
I'm righty.
Okay.
So it was across the body.
Backhand across the body.
Backhand across the body, and it just tipped off the end of the glove. And they didn't even get an extra base out of it. They just got safe to first because it like stayed right there. And I'll take it on it because I'm an adult and I can handle that sort of thing.
Meanwhile, as we passively aggressively give him the people's elbow on his throw from short over to first base.
But then we had one overthrow that I kept to just it was overthrow first, and I kept it to just one extra base because
where'd that come from?
That one came from third base.
Who's playing third?
I believe it was Suits that inning.
Okay.
So
when I see Suits,
or maybe it may have been JP.
Okay, Suits at practice. I'm going to have to ask him about his play at third.
But then I went in and I went and got it from the wall and just absolute cannon right back to the pitcher, and I kept that runner at second base. Okay. So I felt good about that one. And then from the plate, 3 bloop singles, which didn't have the power that I wanted, but it's on base 3 times. Got a couple RBIs, got a couple runs.
I think if we were to give a comparison to your pro Elijah Herbel, it'd be Sid Bream.
Do I know who that is?
Look up Sid Bream. Look up Sid Bream on YouTube. Former Pirate, Brave, and he beat Barry Bonds' 17 hopper home.
Oh, Lord, I'd love to have a mustache like this dude.
Well, you start growing it now. Reminder about moving. All right, West Blue Realty. Give them a shout today. They specialize in residential home sales in Lincoln and the surrounding community. They'll make this next move a smooth one for you. Look, the time is now to find that home, and you know how limited they are with the housing market. You mentioned Hale Varsity. West Blue can give you up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. Tom Luby, Kelly Hofschneider, they as good as it gets. Tom Luby's number at 402-540-3768. Give Kelly a shout. Kelly Hofschneider at 402-202-2312, 1120 K Street, Suite 200, westbluerealty.com. Coach McBride, Mr. Blackshirt next.
Welcome to Hale Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hale Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Into Hour 2, it's Hale Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery, a Husker Monday. Good stuff from Jay Moore, and Dr. Rob Zatechka will be with us here in a little while. We say hi to Mr. Blackshirt Mondays with Charlie, Coach Charlie McBride with us. Coach, how was the weekend? How's the weather up there?
Beautiful. Just, the whole week it's supposed to be nice after a couple of weeks of bad stuff, but it's supposed to be, this is August and it should be, I found out the other day we've only had one day in the 90s. It's probably been, all the hot weather's been in the 80s, high 80s and stuff, and humidity, of course, sucks, but.
Well, it's got to make you smile and think back to all those two-a-days.
Listen. They don't do two-a-days anymore, do they?
No, they don't.
Oh, please! You're making me. How do they ever get ready to play?
They don't do two-a-days anymore, and there's only a certain amount of days they can be in full pads. And Coach Chinander was probably kind of sick of it or sick about it, not being able to be padded up, but. You had to love two-a-days, man. I mean, you'd roll in and...
I did. That's when you teach. That's the teaching part. That's the most fun of coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you... but I guess, some of these guys that don't coach or don't play made all those rules, and I can't figure that out. I think that if you get... the NCAA, I think they've done close to as lousy as you can get the job of doing stuff, because they're just, some of the things that they've done, I think, have really hurt the game, because, when you talk about not tackling and not doing things that, that stuff's starting to happen to everybody, because of it. And a lot of these people that were ex-pro coaches, of course, they have a way of doing things, and that's the way they do it. But it's pretty much, like we just were a little more alive. But I've been to some pro camps, so they're whacking each other. I mean, during the week, and they're in pads and they're doing some hitting, but it's not. It's not, take them to the ground stuff. Mm-hmm. It's stud is what they call it, I guess. And, they'll run into you now. I mean, and what's good is you watch it, and then pretty soon there's a fight break out. And, somebody, it's always those linemen holding. Those defensive linemen don't like that stuff.
Well, that's what I thought. I mean, it's always the offensive lineman's fault if you ask the defensive line. And then if you ask the offensive lineman, you got a couple of defensive guys or more with a screw loose when it gets to the line of scrimmage.
Well, the defensive guys, they go for the throat first.
Oh, okay.
They'll try to get their hands in there on your throat and choke the heck out of you. That's how it starts.
Then the offensive lineman will cut him?
They won't cut them.
Okay.
No, they won't do that. That's a no-no, and a big time. And the same thing with backs cutting. They don't do that. Backs don't cut guys running blitzes and stuff. And but which I think is good. But then when you talk about the tackling thing, now you got. I think the knee stuff started coming up last year, or a pretty big percentage. With this helmet thing in college.
No,
who knows? I don't know.
I want to go back to the fights. So how it would escalate was defensive guy would go for offensive guy's throat, and then how would the offensive guy respond?
Well, I would punch him.
So about what day?
It isn't hard to figure that one out.
No, I get it. But about what?
And then
day?
And then Milt and I start yelling at each other. So
that's funny. Oh,
so and then when it's all over, when our one-on-one stuff's all over with, or our teamwork's all over with, and you all start laughing at each other.
That's good.
Now, did Milt ever catch a Charlie McBride right cross?
I don't think so.
Did it ever get close?
To what?
Did you and Milt ever go beyond verbal?
No.
I didn't think so. Yeah.
You never know with how practice can get.
What are we going to do? Well, none of us are strong enough after a while to punch each other, so it doesn't make any difference. But 2 swings and we'd be done.
Charlie McBride's with us. Mondays with Charlie, Hail Varsity Radio. So, Coach, I want to talk a little bit about what Coach Chinander has defensively, and pretty excited with an experienced team. I wanted to ask you this about scheming pressure. How much did you scheme pressure, and how much of it did you just go win the one-on-one matchup with your front four?
Well, we were a pressure defense. Yeah. I mean, we'd pressure on every down there was. I mean, we were not. That was one of the things that helped us. Being a pressure defense, it's like it gives kids a chance to run and do things instead of standing there and just banging around the same old every play.
Sure.
I mean, that stuff gets old after a while. It's kind of it breaks up the monotony of things. But I think a lot of times, I mean, even when you look at the pro games, some games these guys play more zone and some play more man at times. Where there are pressure, some quarterbacks, it depends on the quarterback a lot of times. If you're playing an option team, you're sure not going to run a whole lot of blitzes. Anything you do will be coming off the edge, and it would probably be one of the things would be forcing the quarterback to pitch.
Sure.
Or, so he wouldn't run it. If you had a running back that was your dangerous guy, and the quarterback wasn't as dangerous, then you scheme your blitzes to go to the running back. Your defensive end would play different, in some of the stuff. And so it all depends on the kind of options and things like that. But what we did is we had, against certain sets that week, we would say, okay, against this set, we want to blitz them, but we want to play our base defense too. So if we're winning and we don't want to blitz, we would put a play it call on after the defense was called. In other words, if we called the 11 robber, say, for example, we would say play it. If we were blitzing, let's just say we schemed a blitz for no backs.
Okay.
And what we do is we'd call, if they came out in no backs, we'd play the defense. I mean, that we play, but if they could go to no backs, and we knew it, then we might call live. 11 robber live, meaning that if they did go to the no backs, we would run a blitz against no backs. If they did not come out in it, we just play 11 robber.
Okay.
Now, if we said play it, it's locked.
Sure.
It's locked in. I mean, we're playing it against no backs and everything.
Okay.
So different sets. A lot of times we'll, run blitzes on, and sometimes. In college, a lot of times it'd be more hash mark stuff. You can do a few things more on the hash mark because you got the open field and you got the short side. Where in pro ball, it's more middle of the field all the time. So it's kind of a different game in that respect. But pressure is a must. I mean, if you got some quarterback standing back in the pocket passing all day, you need to kill that guy. I mean, you need to make him put him to sleep or something, But if you got a guy coming on the edge and he's always coming out on play action stuff, then you probably want more stuff coming, too, from the outside, type of blitzing. So, you scheme it all.
It just depends on if he's mobile or a statue. And what stuck out to you? And I want to go back to this because I remember it, and we've talked about the game, the Florida-Nebraska national title game, but it's not that you'd never done zone blitzes before, but Florida had no answer for it, and
right.
You drop a defensive end, and here comes Jamel Williams or Terrell Farley or Phil Ellis. I mean, you guys just went to town, right? And for
right.
what
if you played zone, if you were playing a zone, what you really, in a zone blitz, you were really rushing 4 people.
Yes.
But you were doing it in a different manner. Like you said, you take an outside backer and the defensive end, what we called it rush end. That was our outside. That now is an outside backer, but I don't know how to explain it to their terminology. But you just switch assignments, but you'd make the defensive lineman think by maybe taking a step up the field or 2 steps or something like that, and then dropping to a hook zone or to a zone that we had called, and our zones are colors.
Okay.
So if you were red or blue or something, then let's just say you were red, you're in the basic hook zone.
Okay.
If you were blue, then if this blitz said to go to blue, that's a turn in. Basically we call it turn into flat, and then there's a flat call where you say a green call would be you go to the flat, you take off. I mean, you got to plant your foot and let her fly. So that's what. Now a fire zone is what we did a lot of, which was a 5-man blitz. And that's where we dropped everybody. And like I said, in 1 year, Steve Warren was leading our team in interceptions. We dropped him, and he had 3 interceptions.
That's good.
They're trying to throw the back coming across the middle, or releasing him late or something like that. And we drop our nose. He's standing right there waiting for the quarterback to throw it to him. So... a lot of that stuff is fun, and it's fun, and it's fun in practice, but you still have to rep it a lot. And that's why I think when you have that many people, that's why I think 4 stations is important. And I think by doing that, you can do a lot of things. And we taught our blitzes in groups. In other words, if we ran a middle blitz, we might have we never messed with the secondary or the coverage, but we could mess with the front. So we could change what all the guys up front did, and sometimes that one linebacker, we could change a lot of it. So, but we didn't want to mess with the secondary too much. Because that's too much thinking. I mean that's crazy stuff. You don't have the days in the week to do that.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Mondays with Charlie. Coach, about a minute and a half left here. This is awesome to hear, kind of the nuts and bolts behind the action. But as you look at this defense, I mean, do you feel pretty good about their progress? I mean, it sounds like, Coach Chinander's pretty excited just because they've got so much experience back. They can potentially do some pretty exotic things.
Well, yeah, I think that these kids, I would guess that to start out with, they probably have as good athletes as we had. I mean, it's now it comes down to, figuring out what are the right things to do with those athletes. As soon as, we changed our defense, we're sitting there with Dante Jones and Trev Albers. You got to be kidding me. Mm-hmm. They're going to be humming Hayaka all the time. They're not going to. The only time they're going to drop is a zone blitz, and we didn't do that while they were even there. Uh-huh. So they were coming every time, but their alignments were different, and it's funny because people are afraid to adjust that outside guy, and we played them sometimes a yard to a yard and a half outside the end, and you're normally you're in a 9 technique or a 7, a 9 outside, a 7's inside shoulder. We didn't play a lot of 7. I didn't like that stuff, but against option football, you're killing yourself. Mm-hmm. And but I don't know. There's so many different things you can do against certain teams, and that's what you have to do in the summer. You look at Oklahoma. Let's take Ohio State. You look at their offense. They're going to change a few things. You'll know by the time you get to them. But it'll be something that you can think about in the summertime and work on each team individually as far as what blitzes you think are the best against their play actions and their runs and so on and so forth.
Charlie McBride with us, Mondays with Charlie. Coach, this was a lot of fun. We're getting closer to the season, getting underway here, under 30 days. And
the thing they need to do, though, is they need to start playing Smash Mouth instead of Brownies and Fairies.
Yeah. Well, I think you might.
I mean, they need to get reckless.
Ah.
Go ahead and make a mistake, but make it 1,000 miles an hour.
Go hit somebody. I like it. Coach, right. We'll get back at you next Monday. Awesome to chat. Thanks so much for the time today.
Yep, I'm getting fired up. You know that.
No, I know.
Okay.
We'll play Brownies and Fairies next week.
Okay, talk to you next week.
Ya.
Thanks for having me. I'll be here, I hope.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Let's talk some old line. Let's talk to a Husker great. Let's talk to a podcast host. You have the Doc Talk Sports, Rob Zatechka, Travis Justice. I know you love listening to it. At Doc Talk Sports on Twitter is where you find them. And Dr. Rob, what's good, man? It's August. Camp time is here. How are you?
Oh, my God. I'm just glad that we're staring down the season starting up at all levels right now compared to where we were last year at this time, where it was like you didn't know if society was shutting down, let alone the football season. So I like where we're at right now. I think we're going to be moving forward with these seasons, and I can't wait to get started.
No, we'll get your take on some realignment issues, some thoughts on the Big Red as we go into the season. But Coach Frost name-dropped you and some of your other offensive line brethren last week at the press conference. Can you share or just give us kind of a recap of, what your role and some of the other offensive linemen's role were when it comes to touching base with this year's group, this year's core group of offensive linemen, really that position group is in general?
It was really nothing more than, some of those guys on that O-line had kind of reached out about maybe wanting to get to know some of the guys that had played previously and some of the groups that had pretty good runs of success in the past, and just try and pick our brains a little bit and get to know us a little bit in terms of some of the strategies we used, whether it was kind of finding cohesiveness as a group mentality in terms of dealing with the day-ins and day-outs of practices going against Nebraska's got a really good group of defensive linemen coming in this year. And so you almost need strategies for practice. We kind of had sort of a mindset and a mental strategy when we were going out, and you had to go against guys like Kevin Raymakers and Terry Keneally and Christian Brothers and Dante Jones and Grant Wistrom in practice every day. That's kind of a tough group of guys that you've got to go butt heads with just on a day in and day out basis. So sort of having a strategy of how to approach guys like that, and then how to take that same strategy and translate that into the games. Because if you can go out and have a really hard, really aggressive practice against a Peter Brother or Grant Wistrom or a Terry Keneally, you're going to do just fine come game time. So, and that was kind of one of the things I think we really tried to impart is that, I hate going back to Banker's comment about the referring to Iowa practices, they must be bloodbaths. Well, those Nebraska practices under Osborne, I don't want to say they were brutal, but if you could make it through a full pack, full speed practice, whether it was ones versus ones, whether it was goal line drills, whatever, against those guys in practice, you're going to be just fine come game time. And that was kind of the thing we wanted to impart to them is you go out there, every practice, you're not taking anything off of those guys. You're going out there, you're going to go full speed. And as an offensive lineman, you got to have the mentality that you're going to own that practice. You're going to own the line of scrimmage against those guys over on the defense. And because it's Ty Robinson, it's the Blackshirts, it's Casey Rogers, it doesn't matter. You're going to go out there and you're going to absolutely own that line of scrimmage, and we really wanted those guys to pick up on that kind of mentality.
Well, mentality is so key, and you touched on the translative part. Dr. Rob Zatechka with us, Husker standout, part of the pipeline, of course, Hail Varsity Radio, joining us today. So is it that day in, day out where you're going to kind of breed some confidence going in day after day with a lunch pail, an attitude that maybe this O-line, we know they're talented, or at least on paper they're talented, and you see the measurables, Rob, they're big and they're fast and they're strong, but is that maybe a missing puzzle piece that you maybe feel a little bit better about going into this year on top of the chemistry portion?
I do, and I think, again, you want those guys to take ownership of the team. You want them to take ownership of those practices. You want that day in and day out intensity to be there. You don't want we kind of had the attitude we didn't want to walk off the practice field at any practice and have the defense remotely think they got the better of us at any point. And again, if you can do that against a pretty solid defense, and I think Nebraska is going to have a really good defense. If you look back last year, which with the whole COVID situation, the messed up schedule, all of that, I know it was kind of I don't want to call it a throwaway year because I think there was good things that came out of it. But even with all of those issues they had with COVID, one of the things that really stuck out to me was I thought the defense played really good football for the most part last year. It was just you had an offense that just wasn't putting up the points you needed to win games. So I think if you can go into the season knowing you've had a really great, and not just great, but consistently great run of practices against Nebraska's current defense, I think that's going to pay huge dividends for the offense this year. I mean, that's kind of the thing I want to see this offense do is go out there and dominate these practices, because if they can do that, they're going to hold up fine against a lot of teams. And that's where it all starts, is that intensity in practice, that domination in practice. You want to have that intensity, because if you can do it in practice, the games are going to get a heck of a lot easier.
Dr. Rob Zatechka is with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Rob, a lot was made at the end of last year about the fact that a quarterback was the leading rusher for the Huskers last season. And whenever you look at this team coming into 2021, we still don't really know who the running back is going to be. So I just want to ask you, how important do you think it is as an offensive lineman to know through fall camp who your starting running back is going to be and building a relationship with that running back?
Well, and you need that, not just for that relationship between the blockers and the running back, but on the whole, you need somebody who can just kind of help carry that load. Anytime the quarterback's your leading rusher, I don't know, maybe unless it's a wishbone offense like Air Force with like D. Dowis under Fisher to Berry, or Jamel Holloway at Oklahoma under Switzer. Maybe you can make it work then, but otherwise you've got to be able to kind of spread that load around a little bit. If you want, from a historical standpoint of reference, I thought that was actually one of the weaknesses of that 2001 Nebraska team, was the fact that Crouch carried so much of that load. Now, I understand you've got a Heisman guy at quarterback. They're going to carry a fair amount of that load. It's just you back it up a little bit more. Do you go back when you had Behringer, when you had Frazier, when you had Frost as the quarterback? You had guys who are Heisman caliber quarterbacks, but they didn't have to carry 100% of the load, because you went three deep at running back with NFL caliber guys on those football teams back then. You got to have a guy who can shoulder some of that load, and I think that's going to be kind of the key thing. Now, in terms of establishing a relationship with that guy, yeah, you do have to have that as well, because when you're blocking for a guy, you tend to know tendencies. Hey, if I'm blocking an edge guy, is that running back, is he going to be more prone to bounce it outside, or is he one of those guys who likes to pick up a little contact and he's going to cut it underneath my block? Knowing those kind of things can be huge in terms of how you're going to set up those blocks for a given guy. And you want to have at least two, if not three, running backs that you can establish that kind of relationship with. I think for Nebraska's offense to really, really click, you're going to need minimum two running backs who can go out there and consistently get you the yardage. You can't be just Gabe Ervin going out there and getting a bunch of yards, and then you got a few guys whose sole role is to just give him a break.
Right.
I mean, you want to see a guy like Stepp be able to move in there. There's a couple of other guys on that roster that I think can get some yardage. They've got to be guys that can consistently be productive running backs and get you tough yardage in key situations when the game is on the line. It can't be just the first-string guy. You got to have a couple of guys that can do that, and knowing what those guys' tendencies are is going to be very key as the season goes along.
Husker standout, part of the pipeline, Rob Zatechka with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Dr. Rob, of course, at Doc Talk Sports, his podcast with Travis Justice. Rob, when you look at the offensive line and you look at Juergens and what he's kind of coming into his own potentially, you look at the two tackles. One has a lot of snaps in Benhart. One has maybe a little over 100 in Turner. But that was a good good demo against Rutgers. You feel good about Piper at the left guard. You're figuring out right guard. But Greg Austin's got a lot of dudes to choose from on top of some young pups that are waiting in the wings. Overall, how do you feel about the line moving forward? I know you've spent time with them. You've outlined the mentality side, and Frost touched on that. But overall, with this group, what can they be and what can they drive the offense to be?
Well, I think they could be really, really good. I thought last year they were really kind of coming into their own as the season went on last year. I'd like to see from an offensive standpoint, a play calling standpoint, a little bit more consistency, especially with the run game. I mean, because I think these are guys that they're not afraid to get in there and mix it up and bang heads with people. And so you've got guys that I think can play. It's just that at some point you got to stop throwing passes in the flat. I mean, when the offense is relying on passes to the flat, screens, things like that, I mean, that's not helping. If you're an offensive line, that's not putting you in a position to do what you're good at. So you've got to try and get the ball moving vertically. And whether it's passing downfield, I thought Nebraska's pass protection last year was not horrible. I mean, there's games where you had some guys like the Iowa game where Iowa had two NFL guys on that D line. You're gonna have some hiccups against a defensive line like that.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, Hail Varsity Radio. Rob Zatechka, Husker, great and part of the pipeline. We're talking Nebraska's direction offensively.
We need to try to move the ball vertically, both running the ball as well as passing it, and put these guys in a position to kind of showcase what they're actually capable of doing. So I've got a lot of faith in some of them. I thought, you talk about Juergens coming into his own. As the season went along, the snapping thing, he kind of got it down. His blocking ability's always been there. The guy is an explosive blocker, and I think he's really, really good. It's just how do you showcase the explosiveness of your center as a blocker when it's a pass to the flat?
Right. Sure.
It just doesn't really give you an opportunity. I mean, it doesn't matter if Juergens is lighting up the nose guard or that backside D tackle if it's a pass to the flat. It just doesn't. I want to see Nebraska lean on that run game. I want to see them do what they did in the Iowa game last year where they lined up and they actually kind of tried to leave the ball in the hands of the run game for the better part of that game, and it kept it close. I think Iowa just had a really, really good defense last year. Nebraska's offense on the whole wasn't gelling. I don't think the quarterback position was very settled all of last year, and they didn't have anybody they were comfortable having step in and take over as sort of the lead running back. But give the ball to a guy 20, 25 times a game, and that's what I want to see.
Rob,
I want to see him give it to somebody else, another 15. I want to see the second string guy get 15 carries. So it's just I don't think the play calling and the offense on the whole put these guys in position to do what they needed to do.
We'll see where they go with more of a voice to Lubick, right, and Greg Austin, because I have an idea what those two want to do. I think they want to kind of ground and pound it and lean on that offensive line. Rob,
absolutely.
Let's talk a second about expansion here, and we know what Oklahoma and Texas have done. A report from a couple of media folks down in Florida earlier today that they have sources that say that, look, the SEC has reached out to Florida State and Clemson, which the SEC wants to keep adding. Go for it. Now, that leaves Notre Dame as a wild card. I just don't know what to make of the ACC because of their grant of rights deals through 2036. Your reaction? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of a wild card. I'm also one of those guys that if you want to stay strict with how these teams are in regards to when you're looking at that grant of rights and how strong that is, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because, I don't know, I think a contract's only as good as the piece of paper it's printed on and the individual members who've signed their names at the bottom of it, and a few of those people decide, hey, we're out of here. You see those grants of rights, you see those contracts, I think there's ways to get through those. I mean, do we really think Oklahoma and Texas are going to be playing in the Big 12 until 2025?
No shot, brother. They're moving next year.
I know, and that's my point. The grant of rights for the Big 12. Now, I do know everybody says the grant of rights in the ACC is through 2036. And I'm told, if you look at a lot of the pundits who know more about this than I do, it's a much stronger, much better put-together contract than the Big 12's was. That being said, I'm like, okay, well, I think the Big 12's grant of rights is dissolving in a year. Mm-hmm. So how strong is any grant of rights contract? So I'm not convinced that the ACC is going to stay wholly intact here. I think it's more likely that the Big Ten stays intact, may not do any expansion, but they maybe form more of an alliance with the Pac-12 with thoughts on a future expansion with the Pac-12 at some time in the future when that becomes something more, when it looks like that might be something that might be a little more beneficial to both conferences. I think I could see the Pac-12 expanding and picking up some of the remnants of the Big 12 actually before I see much happening with the Big Ten doing a true expansion at this point. Now, I say that because I think the per-team payouts and the monetary value of staying in the Big Ten is hugely valuable. I don't think a team like Ohio State, and that's kind of a little bit of a linchpin here for the Big Ten, is somebody like Ohio State. If Ohio State and the SEC truly start seriously talking, I think that's where things fall apart for everybody across the nation.
Rob Zatechka is with us, Sail Varsity Radio, Dr. Rob, and, of course, his podcast, Doc Talk Sports with Travis Justice. Can check that out. Check out the Twitter at Doc Talk Sports and the Podbeans, where you can hear that. Also other platforms. Dr. Rob, let's get down to it here with Nebraska. And are you feeling buzz? Are you feeling excitement for the season? You're a guy that played and excelled for Nebraska. As far as the fan base is like, I don't want to say wait and see, but it's not as. Granted, it's day 4 practice, so give us a week and maybe things crank up, right, as we get closer to kickoff against Illinois. Is there a game that's like circled on your calendar, or are you just looking at this opener? Are you looking at Northwestern in October? Are you looking at Iowa? What's your barometer gauge?
I think that Illinois game is going to be a hell of a good barometer, and the reason I say that is, man, that's a team that came out last year. Now, and I get it, new coach, new coaching staff, a lot of changes come out of that. But that Illinois team was a team that came out last year and just punched Nebraska in the face right off the bat. Again, I don't know if throwing a pass to the flat and turning the ball over on the first play of the game helps much. But
you didn't swear when that happened, did you?
No, it's not exactly the tone setter you're looking for. But that's an Illinois team that, but I'll tell you what, they kicked Nebraska's ass last year. And if you go back to the year before that, you go to 2019, that was a little bit of a barn burner as well, too. I mean, you think about some of those guys like Spielman kind of pulling that game out for Nebraska with all those plays over the middle where he just got lit up. That was a tough game for Nebraska the year before as well, too. So this is not an easy opener. I mean, This is not an easy win for Nebraska. I think a lot of people are looking at Brett Bielema's recent track record as a coach and the fact that it's a new coaching staff in general there in Champaign and going, okay, well, we got Illinois. That should be we're going to chalk that one up as a win. Well, man, that's going to be a tough game, I think. I mean, there's a lot of those players back, and those guys are going to know exactly what they did to Nebraska the last 2 years. And I don't think all of a sudden they're going to decide, yeah, we're taking this year off. So that's going to be a hell of a barometer, and that one game is going to tell you a lot about this Nebraska team, mainly in terms of how ready are they to come out and meet a physical, hard-hitting challenge right off the bat.
No, I totally agree with you. We'll be on the road for it and excited. Dr. Rob, we'll get caught up here closer to kickoff. Thanks for giving us a few minutes today.
Absolutely.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Monday, Husker Monday. Good stuff. Jay Moore on the Blackshirt defense 2021. Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, all about pressure. And you had Dr. Rob Zatechka, part of the pipeline on this year's group of offensive linemen. Can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. Follow us on Twitter, Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio, Elijah Herbel at Herbal Essence. On Twitter is where you find Elijah. Loaded up tomorrow, Rick Kaczynski, the return of Mitch Sherman from San Diego. So he is back. Elijah, there is digital evidence tweeted out by the Lincoln Salt Dogs detailing for the world and internet to remember the beatdown that happened on Saturday. But they got you trying to make a play at first, and it's just not a kind picture. It doesn't show the throw, and it's you trying to make the pickup at first base.
I disagree. I think it's a great angle of me. It really proves I've been doing my squats this year. I'm sticking that thing out there.
You've been staying the hell out of the sun. I about fell over, blinded by the light.
Well, we can't all have the beautiful tan of Chris Schmidt. Sorry.
No, but I'm saying there was clearly an error on third base on the throw. The way you're going after the ball, that ain't you, Buckner.
I mean, I did all I could to keep that thing in the infield, keep it from getting...
Let's just be straight. You kept it in the stadium.
But, I mean, I think at the end of the day, what you need to look at here is the fact that I wore the cleats out there. There's picture evidence of that.
But you didn't go Kevin Suits like I'm wearing pants.
No. My legs can take it. I'll slide through that grass.
Well, you're not going to slide. And then there's Shimmick in the third base box in his shorts.
Did you say I'm not going to slide?
Well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't ever have to slide in softball.
Hooksy was going head first into third.
Well, of course he was, because it's Game 7 for him. Of course Hooksy was.
And then we had Bill Shamer had a little sliding catch out in the outfield.
Which is fine. There's grass there. You're not going to trash your knee and need...
Oh, no. In softball, it's the 60 feet baseline, so we're sliding in grass, too. I guess unless you're sliding into first or into home, but only the tryhards do that.
Or into second.
Second, it was between like the pitcher's mound and second base.
So there was grass.
There was grass to slide into at second and third, not first or home. But if you're sliding into first,
depending on who's trying to turn the double play, you take that bastard out.
Well, the thing is by the end of the second inning, it really didn't feel like we needed to slide anymore because
I mean, it was going to be bad flips and ice cream.
I mean,
or beers.
Yeah.
Bad flips and beers.
Many a beer was consumed that day.
Well, it should have been.
Yeah.
It was good. Reminder about buckling up. 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska are not wearing a seatbelt. If used properly, a seatbelt can reduce the risk of fatal injury by 60%. Your best defense in any crash, buckling up, brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. I think we've missed Jacob Padilla. I think we got to reach out to Jacob tomorrow. It's been too long.
It has been. I mean, we talked to him whenever you were out. Will and I did. Was that a week and a half ago?
Yeah.
So we chatted with Jacob a little bit, but I want to get caught up with Derek to hear about the next chapter too, because he's gonna be doing some work with Hale Varsity still, but now he's off in Chicago. So.
Well, we can talk to Derek too. We got Rick Kaczynski.
I'm just making sure we're not going to have to retire Derek from the radio
Derek's
show.
never retiring, whether he likes it or not. Talk to you tomorrow at 4. Thanks.